Tobias Brennan stared at his phone screen at 11:43 on a Wednesday night, the glow casting shadows across his tired face in the darkness of his living room. His thumb hovered over the send button, whiskey warming his throat, the television playing footage from today's board meeting on mute. Evangeline Whitmore stood at the head of the conference table in that navy blue dress, her blonde hair catching the light every time she gestured, confidence radiating from her like heat from asphalt in summer. His fingers moved before his brain caught up typing words that felt dangerous, even as they formed. "Bro, my boss is so hot it should be illegal. Can't focus when she wears that blue dress." He hit send and took another sip, letting the burn distract him from the guilt that always followed these thoughts. Sarah had been gone 2 years and 4 months. 28 months. 843 days. Sometimes he counted in hours. The phone buzzed in his hand. His best friend Crew never slept either, except the name on the screen read Eva W., not Crew W. The whiskey glass slipped from his other hand, amber liquid spreading across the hardwood floor. Sarah had insisted they install the year before she died. Tobias's vision tunneled. His contacts list. Alphabetical order. Eva Whitmore, right above Crew Washington. The message sat there, delivered red receipt showing she'd seen it at 11:44 p.m. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. A single line materialized at 12:03 a.m. My office, 8:00 a.m. sharp. EW. Tobias dropped the phone like it had burned him. The device clattered onto the couch screen, still glowing with those 9 words that felt like a death sentence. His hands shook as he picked it up again, reading the message over and over each time, hoping the words would rearrange themselves into something less catastrophic. With a black man in corporate America, one text message like this wasn't just a mistake. It was a career execution. Sexual harassment claim waiting to happen. Hostile workplace environment. He could already see the HR documentation, the security escort, the whispers following him out of the building. And Sage. God, Sage. His 8-year-old daughter would ask why Daddy lost his job, why they had to move, why everything was falling apart again just when she'd started sleeping through the night without nightmares about her mother. Tobias pulled up his banking app with trembling fingers. Checking account balance $2,891. Rent due in 12 days, $2,100. Sage's asthma inhaler refill sitting at the pharmacy, $287 because insurance only covered 60%. The math didn't work if he lost this job. The math had barely worked when he had it. He opened his laptop and started typing a resignation letter. Better to control the narrative. Better to walk away with some dignity intact than be dragged out by security while his colleagues watched from their cubicles, grateful it wasn't them already calculating how to distance themselves from the controversy. Sleep never came. Tobias sat on that couch watching the sky turn from black to grey to pale blue, the resignation letter saved as a draft, his phone silent and accusing on the cushion beside him. At 6:15 his alarm went off upstairs in Sage's room. Their morning routine. He couldn't miss it, not today, maybe not ever again, depending on how the next few hours unfolded. Sage's bedroom door creaked when he pushed it open. She lay curled under her purple comforter, clutching the stuffed rabbit she'd named Lily after her mother. Lillian. The name still hurt to think fully, to say out loud, to see embroidered on that rabbit's worn ear. He sat on the edge of the bed and touched her shoulder gently. Her eyes opened slowly, taking a moment to focus, and then she smiled, that gap-toothed smile that made everything else fade for just a second. Their secret handshake started with a fist bump, moved to an elbow. Tap, ended with their fingers intertwined, and her voice soft and certain. "Love you more than yesterday." Tobias's throat tightened. "Always more than yesterday, baby girl." She sat up. Lily clutched to her chest and studied his face with the 2 old eyes that came from losing a parent young. Children who'd watched death take someone they loved developed a 6th sense for fear. "Daddy, why you look scared?" The question landed like a physical blow. He couldn't lie to her. Wouldn't. Lillian had made him promise that much in those final days when the lupus had stolen everything but her fierce love for their daughter. "Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes, Sage. Big ones. But we face them with dignity. We don't run." She considered this with the gravity of someone 3 times her age. "Did you hurt somebody?" "No, sweetheart. But I said something I shouldn't have. To someone important." "Are you going to say sorry?" "I'm going to try." She nodded, like this made perfect sense, like the world still followed rules where apologies fixed things. Tobias envied that certainty, even as he worked to preserve it. Getting Sage ready for school felt like moving through water. Breakfast took twice as long because she only wanted the cereal that came with the toy shark, and he couldn't find it in the pantry. And when he suggested the dinosaur cereal instead, she looked at him with Lillian's disappointed expression, and his resolve crumbled. He found the sharks behind the oatmeal neither of them ever ate. At drop-off, Sage clung to his jacket with both fists. Other parents flowed past them into Riverside Elementary children, chattering about spelling tests and soccer practice. Normal problems from normal lives. Sage pressed her face into his side. "Don't go to work today, Daddy. Stay with me." His heart cracked down the middle. "I have to go, baby. I promise I'll be here at 3:30 to pick you up." "Promise, promise. Promise, promise." Ms. Valenti Sage's second-grade teacher approached with the careful expression educators used when they needed to deliver bad news to already struggling parents. She waited until Sage reluctantly joined her classmates before speaking. "Mr. Brennan, do you have a moment?" Tobias checked his watch. 7:20. 40 minutes until his meeting with Eva Whitmore. 40 minutes until his professional life potentially imploded. He nodded. "Sage had another panic attack yesterday during our family tree project. The school counselor recommends family therapy." "I know you're doing everything you can as a single parent, but she needs additional support processing her mother's death." The words came at him from very far away. Another bill he couldn't afford. Another reminder that no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't be both parents. Another failure stacking on top of failures. "I'll look into it. Thank you for telling me." Ms. Valenti touched his arm briefly. "She's a remarkable child, Mr. Brennan. She just needs time and help." Time, help, money. 3 things in perpetually short supply. Driving to Whitmore Publishing. Tobias found himself talking out loud to the space where Sarah used to sit. A habit he'd developed and couldn't shake conversations with a ghost who never answered but somehow still listened. "Sarah, if you're watching, I need you to know I'm trying. I'm trying so hard to keep us afloat to be what Sage needs to not completely fall apart. But I don't know how to be both parents. And now I might lose the one thing keeping our heads above water because I couldn't control my thoughts for 2 seconds. The Whitmore Publishing Building rose 32 stories against the morning sky glass and steel reflecting clouds. Tobias had worked here for 3 years, ever since Morrison & Associates fired him for missing too many meetings during Sarah's final hospitalization. Eva's father, Maxwell, had hired him back when few companies would touch a single father with an unreliable attendance record. That kindness had earned loyalty. He'd worked late nights and weekends, proving his worth, rebuilding his reputation project by project. And he'd destroyed it with 14 words and a fire emoji. The elevator ride to the executive floor lasted an eternity. Tobias studied his reflection in the polished doors. Navy suit. Sarah had insisted he buy for her funeral because she wanted him to look professional at her memorial. Wanted people to see him as capable and strong when he felt neither. His tie sat crooked. He straightened it 3 times before giving up. Eva's assistant looked up from her desk outside the corner office at 7:55. She gestured toward the closed door without speaking. No HR representative waited in the hallway. No security guard stood by. Just the quiet hum of fluorescent lights and the distant sound of keyboards from the marketing floor below. Tobias knocked twice. A voice answered immediately. "Come in." Eva Whitmore sat behind her desk with the morning sun streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows behind her, turning her blonde hair almost white in the glare. She wore a charcoal blazer today, professional armor, her expression unreadable. The navy dress hung somewhere in her office closet, an invisible accusation. She gestured to the chair across from her. "Close the door first. Sit down." Tobias obeyed, his rehearsed apology dissolving on his tongue. The office smelled like coffee and the faint floral scent of whatever perfume she wore. Papers covered her desk in organized chaos, quarterly reports, campaign mock-ups, sticky notes in her precise handwriting. His prepared speech came out mechanical, stripped of the emotion that had kept him awake all night. "Ms. Whitmore, I take full responsibility for my inappropriate text message. I understand if you need to terminate my employment. I only ask that you allow me to resign quietly to avoid complications for both of us." Eva leaned back in her chair, studying him with eyes the color of steel. Several seconds passed. Somewhere in the building a phone rang and went unanswered. "Complications? You mean because you're a black man and I'm a woman in power? You think I'd weaponize that text?" The directness staggered him. Most people danced around race-used coded language, pretended not to see what sat obvious and unavoidable between them. Eva sliced straight to it. I don't know. But the potential for misunderstanding exists." She slid a folder across the desk toward him. The label read, "Hartman account. Confidential." $8.5 million contract. Hartman Technologies wants fresh creative direction for their rebrand. Their CEO specifically requested bold, innovative thinking. You led the Riverside Mall campaign that saved us $600,000 last quarter. You pitched the Kensington Hotel concept that brought in their entire corporate chain. Your work is exceptional, Mr. Brennan. Tobias stared at the folder, not touching it, waiting for the other shoe to drop. You're leading Hartman. Full creative control, budget discretion, direct line to their executive team. His brain couldn't process the words. They didn't fit with the script he'd written in his head, the script where he walked out of this building unemployed and unemployable. I don't understand. You're not firing me. Eva's expression shifted slightly, something like amusement flickering across her face before the professional mask returned. Should I? Your text was inappropriate, but I've reviewed 3 years of your performance reviews, every campaign you've touched, every client meeting you've led. You're talented, Tobias. One stupid text sent late at night doesn't erase that. She stood and walked to the windows silhouetted against the morning light. I'm 32 years old, running a company my father built over 4 decades. The board questions every decision I make. Gareth Sutherland, our COO, actively works to undermine me in meetings. Half the executive team treats me like a child playing CEO. I can't afford to lose my best people because they're human and made a mistake. The speech felt rehearsed, like she'd been planning it since midnight when she read his text. Tobias found his voice. What's the catch? Eva turned back to face him. The catch is, we'll work closely on Hartman. Late nights, strategy sessions, high-pressure meetings. Can you maintain professionalism? The question hung loaded between them, acknowledging what they both knew. The attraction existed, inappropriate and undeniable, hovering in the space where professional boundaries should hold firm. You have my word, Ms. Whitmore. I'll be the most professional employee you've ever worked with. Her eyes held his for a long moment. Good. Because Gareth is looking for any excuse to question my judgment. Every decision I make gets scrutinized, dissected, used as evidence of my supposed incompetence. Don't give him ammunition. She returned to her desk and opened her laptop, a clear dismissal. Tobias stood legs unsteady, the Hartman folder clutched in his hands like a lifeline. At the door, he paused. Ms. Whitmore, thank you for the second chance. Eva didn't look up from her screen. Don't thank me yet. Hartman presentation is in 4 weeks. They're expecting brilliance. Deliver it. Tobias walked back to his cubicle in a daze. Co-workers glanced at him with curiosity. They'd seen him summoned to Eva's office early, probably assumed the worst. He set the Hartman folder on his desk and stared at it like an artifact from an alternate timeline. His phone buzzed. Text from crew. You alive, bro? You never texted back last night. Tobias typed, alive. Long story. Tell you later. 3 dots appeared immediately. Everything cool at work? Better than expected. Weirdly better. That's cryptic AF, but okay. Lunch later. Can't. Have to pick up Sage early for dentist. Cool, cool. Proud of you, man. Whatever you're dealing with, you got this. The confidence in those words felt unearned. Tobias opened the Hartman folder and started reading. Product specs, market research, demographic analysis, competitor positioning. The kind of campaign that could make or break careers. The kind Eva Whitmore had just handed him despite, or perhaps because of a text message that should have ended everything. At 10 a.m., the executive floor erupted into motion. Board meeting, mandatory attendance for all department heads. Tobias filed into the conference room with 15 other senior staff taking a seat near the back. Eva stood at the head of the table, a presentation remote in her hand facing down the board of directors like a general addressing skeptical troops. Gareth Sutherland sat to her immediate right, positioned as second in command, though his body language suggested he considered himself first. 58 years old, with silver hair and a politician's smile, he'd worked alongside Maxwell Whitmore since before Eva was born. The resentment hung on him like cologne. Eva clicked through slides detailing Q3 projections, acquisition targets, expansion strategies. Her voice remained steady and certain despite the interruptions. Gareth raised his hand during her third slide. I have concerns about these growth targets. They're aggressive to the point of recklessness. Several board members shifted in their seats. Eva's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. The targets align with our 5-year strategic plan that the board approved last quarter. We're on track to exceed them by 12%. Your father built this company on conservative measured growth, not wild expansion schemes. The implications sat heavy in the room. Your father knew what he was doing. You're just a girl playing CEO. Eva's response came measured and cold. My father also told me before he retired that companies either grow or die. Stagnation isn't stability, Gareth. It's slow decline. These targets position us for long-term success. Gareth smiled without warmth. I hope you're right, for all our sakes. The meeting continued another 40 minutes, tension crackling like static electricity. Tobias watched the power dynamics play out, watched Gareth plant seeds of doubt, watched Eva stand her ground with the exhaustion of someone who'd been fighting this battle every day for 8 months. When the board finally filed out, Gareth lingered. He approached Tobias in the hallway with that same politician's smile. Brennan Wright Marketing, I heard Eva gave you the Hartman account. The shift to her first name felt deliberate, undermining. Yes, sir. Looking forward to the challenge. Gareth's hand landed on Tobias's shoulder, friendly and threatening in equal measure. Between you and me, she's setting you up. Young, inexperienced CEO gives the biggest account in company history to... He paused, letting the unfinished sentence hang. To someone without senior account experience. When Hartman goes sideways, and it will, you'll be the one taking the fall. Diversity hire failure. It'll confirm every bias the board already has about her judgment. The words landed exactly as intended. Diversity hire. The phrase that followed Tobias through every achievement, turning accomplishments into quotas, merit into checkbox exercises. He'd heard it at Morrison & Associates when they promoted him to senior creative, heard it whispered after presentations when clients seemed surprised by his competence. The implication that his skin color was qualification enough that actual talent was incidental. Tobias kept his voice level. I appreciate your concern, Mr. Sutherland, but I earned this account through 3 years of successful campaigns. I plan to earn the next one the same way. Gareth's smile widened. Of course. I'm sure you're very talented. Just watch your back. Eva's in over her head, and she'll drag down anyone nearby when she inevitably drowns. He walked away, leaving Tobias standing in the hallway with doubt coiling in his stomach like poison. Was Eva using him? Setting him up as the convenient scapegoat when her aggressive expansion strategies failed? The thought felt paranoid and entirely possible simultaneously. Back at his desk, Tobias tried to focus on the Hartman materials, but Gareth's words kept echoing. He pulled up his personnel file through the internal system. Performance reviews spanning 3 years, every one marked exceeds expectations or exceptional contribution. Project summaries with quantifiable results, revenue, increased costs, reduced clients retained. The data told one story. Gareth's insinuation told another. At 3:15, Tobias shut down his computer and headed to Riverside Elementary. Sage waited by the main doors with Ms. Valenti, her backpack nearly as large as her small frame. She lit up when she saw him running over with Lily tucked under one arm. You came. You promised, and you came. The pure joy in her voice broke something in his chest. Of course he came. He'd crawl through broken glass to keep that promise to give her one source of stability in a world that had already taken too much. The dentist appointment took an hour. 2 cavities that needed filling, another $400. Tobias added it to the mental ledger of bills piling up faster than paychecks could cover. Sage handled the drilling with stoic bravery, squeezing his hand when the numbness started making her nervous. Afterward, they stopped at the grocery store. Sage rode in the cart despite being too old for it, legs dangling, pointing out things she wanted that he couldn't afford. Cookies shaped like animals, the expensive cereal with the toy inside, ice cream with pieces of cake mixed in. He let her pick one thing. She chose the animal cookies and felt like a failure when her second and third choices stayed on the shelf. Dinner was spaghetti with sauce from a jar, garlic bread from the day-old bakery section. Sage helped him cook, standing on the step stool by the stove, stirring sauce while he boiled water. These quiet domestic moments reminded him of Sarah, of the family they'd been, of what got taken when Lupus decided 2 parents was one too many. After dinner homework. Sage struggled with math fractions that didn't make intuitive sense. Tobias explained it 3 different ways before she understood, her face transforming when the concept clicked. He loved those moments, intelligence sparking the world making sense for just a second. Bath time, teeth-brushing pajamas with the unicorns she'd insisted on last month. Their bedtime routine involved reading from whatever library book she'd chosen that week. Currently, a story about a girl who befriended a dragon. Sage always made him do different voices for each character. He obliged, making the dragon gruff and the princess brave. When the chapter ended, Sage didn't immediately roll over to sleep. She stared at the ceiling, Lily clutched tight. Daddy, is Mama watching us from heaven? The question ambushed him. They hadn't talked about Lillian much lately. Grief came in waves, and Sage had been riding a relatively calm stretch. But children's grief never truly disappeared. It hid, regrouped emerged when you least expected. I think so, baby. I think she sees everything you do. She's so proud of you. Then why am I sad sometimes? Tobias lay down beside her on the small bed, their heads sharing the pillow. Because we miss her. Missing people we love doesn't mean we're not okay. It means they mattered. It means they still matter. Sage turned to face him, her eyes shining with tears. She was too young to have cried. Do you think Mama wants you to be happy again? The question pierced through every defense he'd built. What makes you ask that? Ms. Valenti says my drawings are always sad now. She asked if things were okay at home. I said Daddy works a lot and looks tired all the time. Guilt crashed over him. His daughter shouldered his exhaustion, absorbed his stress, carried burdens no 8-year-old should have to carry. I'm okay, Sage. Just a busy time at work. It'll get better. She didn't look convinced. Children always knew when adults lied. But she nodded anyway, granting him the fiction, and closed her eyes. Tobias waited until her breathing slowed into sleep before extracting himself from her bed. He pulled the covers to her chin, kissed her forehead, turned on her nightlight, shaped like the moon. In the doorway, he paused and looked back at his daughter, sleeping peacefully, with her dead mother's name embroidered on her stuffed rabbit. Sarah, he whispered to the empty air, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to do this alone. Help me not completely screw up our kid. No answer came. No sign. No divine intervention. Just silence, and the soft sound of Sage breathing. Downstairs, Tobias opened his laptop and returned to the Hartman proposal. He worked until past midnight, researching competitors, sketching concepts, building frameworks. The creative work always steadied him, gave his brain something to solve that had actual solutions, unlike parenting or grief, or the complicated tangle of attraction and professionalism that now defined his relationship with his boss. At 12:30, his phone buzzed on the table beside him. Unknown number. He considered ignoring it, then curiosity won. The message contained no words, just a photo. USB drive sitting on his desk at work, distinctive because Sage had decorated it with unicorn stickers. Note attached. Check this before you trust her completely. G.S. Gareth Sutherland. Tobias stared at the photo, paranoia mixing with anger. Gareth had been in his cubicle, planted something, wanted him to find it, wanted him scared and suspicious. The manipulation was obvious and somehow still effective. What was on that drive? What evidence had Gareth manufactured or curated to make Eva look untrustworthy? He should ignore it, should delete the photo and forget Gareth existed, should trust the woman who'd given him a second chance when she had every reason to fire him. But doubt had roots now, tendrils wrapping around his confidence. What if Eva really was setting him up? What if Gareth was right about her inexperience, her poor judgment, her willingness to sacrifice others to save herself? Tobias saved the photo. He'd decide tomorrow whether to take the bait. Tonight, he had 4 hours before Sage woke up for school, 4 hours to sleep if his brain would cooperate. It didn't. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every interaction with Eva, searching for signs of manipulation. The second chance felt too generous. The Hartman account, too significant. Maybe Gareth was right. Maybe he'd been chosen specifically because his failure would reflect poorly on Eva's judgment, would give the board ammunition to remove her. Or maybe Gareth was poisoning the well, creating fractures where none existed, isolating Eva from the employees who might support her. Tobias didn't know which truth to believe, so he settled for the only certainty available tomorrow. He'd have to choose. At 6:15, Sage's alarm chirped. Another day began. Secret handshake, breakfast negotiations, school drop-off where she clung less than yesterday but still looked back twice to make sure he was really there. Arriving at Whitmore Publishing, Tobias went straight to his cubicle. The USB drive sat exactly where the photo showed it, unicorn stickers garish under fluorescent lights. He picked it up, turned it over in his hands, felt the weight of whatever Pandora's box Gareth had prepared. His computer booted slowly. The office filled with morning sounds, coffee brewing, keyboards clicking, phones ringing. Normal corporate life happening around him while he held potential evidence of betrayal or manufactured lies designed to create betrayal. Tobias plugged in the drive. 3 folders appeared, one labeled Personnel, one labeled Board Communications, one labeled Restructuring. He opened Board Communications first, emails between Eva and various board members spanning the last 8 months. He skimmed through routine business meeting agendas, strategic discussions, budget approvals. Then he found the thread that made his stomach drop. Subject line: Employee Assessment and Retention Strategy. Eva's email to the board chair dated 3 months ago. We need to critically evaluate underperforming staff and make difficult decisions about removing those who don't meet our evolving standards. Several employees currently coasting on tenure rather than merit. Response from board chair. Agreed. Present recommendations at next review cycle include specific names and performance justification. Eva's reply. Initial list includes department heads in sales, IT, and marketing. Brennan in marketing shows promise but needs close supervision. Others require immediate action. Tobias read the line 3 times. Brennan shows promise but needs close supervision. The words felt like judgment and threat combined. He clicked through more emails, finding references to restructuring plans, efficiency initiatives, cutting redundant positions. His name appeared twice more. Once in a list of potential risks due to personal circumstances affecting attendance. Once in a discussion about ensuring diverse representation in leadership while maintaining performance standards. The implication was clear. Eva saw him as a liability. Someone talented enough to maybe keep, but risky enough to watch carefully. The Hartman account suddenly looked different through this lens, not an opportunity, a test. And if he failed, she had documentation proving she'd flagged him as a concern months ago. Tobias felt sick. The second chance, the kindness about his late-night text, the understanding about Sage's needs, all of it could be manipulation. Strategy, giving him enough rope to hang himself while maintaining plausible deniability. He ejected the USB drive and pocketed it. Evidence. Or lies. No way to know for certain without confronting Eva directly, and confrontation meant revealing Gareth's intervention, meant choosing sides in a war he didn't fully understand. At 8:30, his desk phone rang. Eva's extension. Tobias, do you have a moment? I'd like to discuss the Hartman timeline. Her voice sounded normal, professional, giving no hint that she'd ever written his name on a list of underperforming employees who might need removing. I'll be right up. He rode the elevator to the executive floor with the USB drive burning in his pocket like stolen evidence. Eva's office door stood open. She sat behind her desk, reviewing documents, morning light streaming through those floor-to-ceiling windows, turning everything sharp and clear. She gestured to the chair. Close the door. Tobias obeyed, sitting down with careful neutrality. Eva slid a calendar across the desk. Hartman presentation is scheduled for 4 weeks from tomorrow. They want preliminary concepts by the 2-week mark. I'd like to meet weekly to review progress. Thursday afternoons work for you. The request sounded reasonable, expected even, but Tobias heard close supervision, echoing from those emails, saw himself being monitored and assessed, every move documented for future justification. Thursday afternoons are fine. I pick up my daughter at 3:30, but I can return after she's settled. Eva's expression shifted slightly. That's not necessary. We can meet during regular hours. I know you balance parenting responsibilities. The understanding felt genuine or perfectly performed. Tobias couldn't tell which. Actually, Ms. Whitmore, I need to ask you something. She looked up from the calendar. Of course. He pulled out the USB drive and set it on her desk between them. This was left in my cubicle. It contains emails between you and the board discussing employee performance. My name appears several times, including on a list of people who need close supervision. Eva's face went carefully blank. She picked up the USB drive, turning it over, studying the unicorn stickers with an expression Tobias couldn't read. Where did you get this? It was left for me, anonymously. The lie protected Gareth, and Tobias wasn't sure why he felt compelled to offer that protection. Eva plugged the drive into her computer. Several minutes of silence followed while she read, her jaw tightening incrementally with each email. When she finally looked up, something like anger burned in her steel-grey eyes. These are out of context, badly out of context. They seem pretty clear. You flagged me as underperforming. Eva stood and walked to the windows, arms crossed, staring out at the city below. Several seconds passed before she spoke. 3 months ago, Gareth proposed firing you. He brought documentation to the board, your attendance record from when your wife was dying, the meetings you missed, the deadlines you requested extensions on. He argued you were unreliable, that we couldn't trust you with major accounts. He used the phrase, diversity hire who can't deliver. The words landed like punches. Gareth had tried to fire him. Had weaponized Sarah's death, turned his desperate attempts to be present for her final days into evidence of professional inadequacy. Eva turned back to face him. I fought the board to keep you. I presented every campaign you'd led successfully, every client you'd retained, every metric showing your work exceeded standards. The underperforming staff email was about Gareth's proposed cuts. Brennan shows promise but needs supervision was me arguing against his characterization, saying you deserved support, not termination. She returned to her desk and pulled up her full email archives, scrolling to show him the complete thread. Context that didn't exist on the USB drive. Eva's defense of his work, her refusal to treat his grief as a professional liability, her insistence that talented employees going through temporary hardship deserved accommodation, not punishment. Tobias felt the room tilt slightly. Gareth planted this. He wanted me to doubt you. Yes. Eva ejected the USB drive and handed it back to him. He's trying to isolate me, make me look incompetent by surrounding me with distrust. If my own staff won't support me, the board has cause to question my leadership. The strategy was elegant and vicious. Turn Eva's allies against her through manufactured evidence and strategic lies. Tobias had almost fallen for it completely. I'm sorry. I should have come to you immediately. Eva sat down, some of the tension leaving her shoulders. No. You did the right thing asking directly. Gareth is counting on people making assumptions, believing implications, rather than seeking truth. She studied him across the desk, and Tobias felt the weight of her assessment, deciding if he was trustworthy, deciding if the second chance she'd given him was mistake or investment. The Hartman account is yours because you earned it. Not because I'm setting you up, not because I need a scapegoat. You're legitimately the best creative mind in this company. I need you to believe that. Tobias wanted to believe it, wanted to trust the woman sitting across from him with exhaustion etched around her eyes and determination in the set of her jaw. Wanted to ignore the voice in his head, whispering that everyone eventually disappointed you. Everyone eventually chose their own survival over yours. But he nodded. I believe you. The flowers arrived at Tobias's apartment on Saturday morning, an extravagant arrangement of white lilies and blue hydrangeas that must have cost more than his weekly grocery budget. The card read simply, "For Sage's recovery, E.W." Tucked behind the card, a $500 pharmacy gift card with a handwritten note, "No strings, just care." Tobias stood in his doorway holding the arrangement, while Sage pressed her face to the glass from inside, eyes wide with wonder. The gesture felt too personal for a boss-employee relationship, too thoughtful for professional courtesy. Eva Whitmore was blurring lines he'd convinced himself needed to stay rigid and clear. He brought the flowers inside and set them on the kitchen table. Sage immediately started counting petals, naming each bloom, creating elaborate stories about flower kingdoms and petal princesses. Her imagination had survived grief intact, maybe even grown stronger from it, transforming pain into fantasy worlds where happy endings were guaranteed. The pharmacy card sat on the counter all weekend, unused. Tobias couldn't decide if using it meant accepting something he couldn't repay, crossing some threshold from professional to personal that would complicate everything already complicated between them. But Monday morning, when Sage's inhaler prescription notification came through at $287, practicality overrode pride. He used the card. Work consumed the following week. Tobias buried himself in Hartman research, sketching concepts late into the night after Sage slept, building presentations that needed to be perfect, because failure now meant proving Gareth right and Eva wrong. The pressure felt enormous and clarifying simultaneously. He'd spent 3 years being competent. Now, he needed to be exceptional. Thursday afternoon, he presented preliminary concepts to Eva in her office. She'd asked him to arrive at 4, after most staff had left for the day, giving them uninterrupted time. The setting sun painted the room in amber light, softening the corporate edges into something almost intimate. Tobias walked her through 5 different campaign directions, each with supporting research and creative rationale. Eva listened without interrupting her focus, absolute, occasionally jotting notes, but mostly watching his presentation with an intensity that made him hyper-aware of every gesture and inflection. When he finished, silence stretched between them for several seconds. The third concept, the one positioning Hartman as legacy builders rather than tech disruptors. That's the direction. Relief flooded through him. You're sure it's the riskiest approach? Eva smiled slightly, the first time he'd seen genuine warmth break through her professional composure. Risky is why they hired us. Cautious campaigns don't break through market noise. She stood and moved to the windows, gesturing for him to join her. The city spread below, rush hour traffic beginning, its slow crawl lights beginning to flicker on, building by building as dusk approached. Why marketing, Tobias? You could have pursued anything. Your undergraduate degree was in architecture. The question surprised him with its specificity. She'd looked into his background beyond personnel files. Architecture required stability I didn't have. Long hours, unpredictable travel projects that could relocate you anywhere. When Sage was born, Sarah and I decided one of us needed flexibility. Marketing offered that. I could build a career around parenting rather than building parenting around a career. Eva nodded slowly, still staring out at the city. My mother died when I was 9. Ovarian cancer. My father buried himself in this company. Built an empire but lost me in the process. I spent most of my childhood with nannies and boarding schools while he worked 100-hour weeks. I don't remember him smiling. I barely remember him being present. The vulnerability in her voice caught Tobias off guard. This was the woman the boardroom saw calculated, composed, untouchable. But grief, recognized grief. Loss left markers that others who'd experienced it could identify immediately. Sage asks about her mother constantly, whether Sarah can see her from heaven, whether it's okay to be happy when someone you love is gone. I never have good answers, just honest ones. Eva turned to face him directly, close enough that he could see gold flecks in her grey eyes. That's what children need. Honesty, not perfection. You're doing better than you think. The moment stretched too long, awareness crackling between them like static before lightning. Tobias stepped back first, creating distance before the impulse to close it became overwhelming. I should get going. Sage has soccer practice at 6. Eva's expression shifted back to professional neutrality, the mask reasserting itself. Of course. Same time next Thursday. I'll be here. Walking to his car, Tobias felt the weight of what almost happened pressing against his ribs. The attraction wasn't one-sided. Eva felt it too, and that made everything infinitely more dangerous. The following Tuesday, Eva sent a text at 2 in the afternoon. Sage feeling better. I'd love to take you both to lunch this Saturday, as friends. Tobias stared at the message for 5 full minutes before responding. The invitation crossed lines, created precedent, suggested relationships beyond professional obligation. But Sage's therapist had specifically recommended positive female influence, stable adult relationships, exposure to healthy interactions that demonstrated trust and care. He typed, "That's generous. Are you sure?" 3 dots appeared immediately. I wouldn't offer if I wasn't. Besides, I could use practice being around children. My social circle consists entirely of executives and board members. Despite every logical reason to decline, Tobias found himself typing, "Okay, but kid-friendly restaurant. Sage won't eat anything adventurous. I know just the place. I'll text you the address." Saturday arrived bright and unseasonably warm. Tobias debated what to wear for 30 minutes before settling on casual jeans and a button-down rather than the business casual that dominated his weekday wardrobe. Sage changed outfits 4 times, ultimately choosing her purple dress with the unicorn on the front because Miss Eva seems like someone who appreciates unicorns. The restaurant Eva selected was an Italian place in the Arts District family style, with checkered tablecloths and crayons on every table. She'd already arrived when they got there, waiting in a corner booth wearing jeans and a cream sweater that made her look younger than 32. Her hair fell loose around her shoulders instead of pulled back in its usual professional twist. Sage went shy, immediately pressing against Tobias's side, suddenly uncertain. Eva didn't push. She simply smiled and gestured to the crayons. "I've been trying to draw a unicorn for 10 minutes, but can't get the horn right. Think you could help?" The ice broke slowly. Sage tentatively took a crayon and corrected Eva's drawing with the solemn expertise of an 8-year-old who'd drawn approximately 10,000 unicorns. Eva asked questions about proper unicorn anatomy, mane styling, appropriate sparkle placement. Within 15 minutes, Sage was chattering comfortably about unicorn mythology and her extensive stuffed animal collection. They ordered spaghetti for Sage, chicken parmesan for Tobias, eggplant for Eva, and the conversation flowed with surprising ease. Eva asked about Sage's school, her favorite subjects, what she wanted to be when she grew up. Sage interrogated Eva with equal intensity. "Do you have kids?" Eva's smile flickered slightly. "No, I don't." "Why not?" "Sage, that's personal." Tobias started, but Eva raised a hand. "It's okay. I think I'd like to have children someday. I just haven't found the right person to build a family with. It's important to choose carefully, you know." Sage considered this with her characteristic gravity. "My mama used to say that family is the most important thing, more important than work or money or anything else." The mention of Lillian shifted the energy subtly. Eva's expression softened further. "Your mama was very smart." "What else did she tell you?" Sage launched into stories. Sarah teaching her to bake cookies. Sarah singing during thunderstorms. Sarah's insistence that every problem had a solution if you were patient and creative enough. Tobias listened to his daughter share memories with this woman who was supposed to be his boss, but felt increasingly like something else entirely. Eva listened with absolute attention, asking follow-up questions, laughing at Sage's animated storytelling. At one point, Sage pulled out her phone, a basic model Tobias had gotten her for emergencies, and showed Eva photos. Family pictures from before Lillian got sick, birthday parties and holidays, and ordinary moments that had become precious through their impossibility of repetition. "Your mama was beautiful, Sage, and you look just like her." Sage beamed at the compliment, then her face grew serious. Sometimes I forget her voice. That scares me. Eva reached across the table and took Sage's hand gently. I forgot my mother's voice too. But you know what helped writing down the things she said, stories she told, advice she gave? That way, even if you can't hear the voice, you still have the words. That's a really good idea. Will you help me write them down? Tobias's throat tightened. His daughter, who'd been so guarded since losing her mother, was opening up to Eva with a trust that felt both beautiful and terrifying. What happened if this didn't work? If Eva decided casual lunch was too complicated and pulled back, Sage would experience loss again, learn that letting people in only led to abandonment. But looking at them together, Sage animated and engaged Eva, genuinely enjoying the conversation. He couldn't bring himself to interrupt the moment. After lunch, they walked to a nearby park. Sage ran ahead to the playground while Tobias and Eva followed at a slower pace, maintaining careful distance. A photographer captured candid family moments nearby someone's birthday party or anniversary, the shutter clicking periodically. Neither Tobias nor Eva noticed the camera occasionally turning toward them. Thank you for today. This meant a lot to Sage. Eva watched Sage navigate the monkey bars with determined focus. She's remarkable, smart and brave and incredibly perceptive. She's had to grow up fast. Losing a parent does that. How are you managing honestly? The question deserved honesty. Some days I'm barely holding it together. Between work and parenting and trying to keep our heads above water financially, I don't have bandwidth for anything else. Most nights I collapse into bed wondering if I'm completely screwing up her childhood. Eva turned to look at him directly. You're not. Sage is thriving despite enormous grief. That's because of you, Tobias. Because you show up every day and put her first. Sometimes showing up isn't enough. It's everything, Eva said, her voice carrying conviction born from experience. My father made millions but never showed up. I would have traded every dollar for one afternoon where he chose me over the company. You're giving Sage what money can't buy. The words settled between them, acknowledgement of shared understanding. Both knew the weight of absence, the particular pain of parents unable or unwilling to prioritize the humans they'd created over the careers they'd built. Sage called from the top of the slide, waving enthusiastically. They waved back. The afternoon stretched golden and perfect hours, passing without the usual tension of single parenting. Having another adult present changed the dynamic entirely. Sage had someone else to show her playground achievements to. Tobias had someone to share glances with when Sage said something particularly insightful or funny. They existed as something almost resembling a family unit, temporary and fragile, but undeniably real. Around 4, Sage started showing fatigue, the crash that always followed extended social energy. They walked back to the parking lot, Sage holding Tobias's hand, while chattering at Eva about everything and nothing. At the cars, Sage surprised them both by hugging Eva tightly. Thank you for lunch and the park. You're really nice. Eva knelt down to Sage's level. Thank you for teaching me about unicorns. You're an excellent artist. Driving home, Sage was uncharacteristically quiet, staring out the window with a contemplative expression. You okay, baby? Daddy, do you think Mama would like Miss Eva? The question ambushed him. Tobias gripped the steering wheel tighter, choosing his words carefully. I think Mama would appreciate anyone who's kind to you. Why do you ask? Because Miss Eva feels like she could be family. Not like Mama, nobody's like Mama, but like someone who belongs with us. Does that make sense? It made perfect, terrifying sense. Yeah, baby, it does. That night, after Sage fell asleep, Tobias sat on his back porch with a beer he didn't really want, trying to sort through emotions he'd thought permanently buried with his wife. The attraction to Eva wasn't just physical, though that element existed undeniably. It was recognition. Two people who'd learned too early that life took things away without warning, who'd built armor to survive the taking, who somehow saw through each other's defenses to the exhausted, grieving, hopeful humans underneath. His phone buzzed. Text from Eva. Thank you for today. I haven't felt that relaxed in years. Sage is lucky to have you. He typed and deleted 3 responses before settling on, We're lucky you joined us. Sage hasn't opened up to anyone like that since her mother died. The 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Finally. Can I be honest about something? Today scared me. I'm not equipped for this, for caring about people, for getting attached. My track record with relationships is abysmal. I don't want to hurt Sage, or you. Tobias stared at the message, recognizing his own fears reflected back. He wrote, I'm terrified too, but Sage's therapist says she needs positive adult relationships, female influence, someone who shows that people can be trusted not to disappear. What if I disappoint her? What if you don't? What if this is exactly what all three of us need and we're both too scared to try? Several minutes passed without response. Then, I don't know what we're doing here. Neither do I, but I'd like to find out. The conversation ended there, both of them having said too much and not enough simultaneously. Tobias finished his beer and went inside, checked on Sage one more time, and lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, until exhaustion finally dragged him into fitful sleep. Monday morning brought the 2-week deadline for preliminary Hartman concepts. Tobias arrived at the office early, set up the presentation in the main conference room, and waited while Eva assembled the internal review team department heads who'd poke holes in the strategy before presenting to the actual client. Gareth Sutherland entered last, taking a seat at the far end of the table with an expression that promised skepticism. Tobias forced himself to ignore the COO's presence and launched into the presentation. 20 slides detailing market research, creative direction, media strategy, budget allocation. He'd rehearsed until every word felt natural, anticipated every possible objection. The room stayed quiet throughout, people taking notes, but not interrupting. When he finished, Eva spoke first. Questions? The marketing VP asked about digital spend allocation. The CFO questioned production costs. The head of media relations wanted clarification on press strategy. All reasonable concerns with prepared answers. Then Gareth raised his hand. I have a fundamental concern about this entire approach. The room's energy shifted. Everyone recognized Gareth's tone, the one that preceded takedowns disguised as constructive criticism. Hartman came to us specifically requesting innovation. This campaign, Gareth gestured dismissively at the presentation, feels derivative, playing it safe under the guise of being strategic. It won't break through. Tobias kept his voice level. The research indicates their core demographic responds to legacy messaging. They don't want flash. They want substance. Your research, based on assumptions rather than data-driven analysis. It's based on 18 months of Hartman's own customer surveys, competitive analysis across their industry, and focus group testing we conducted specifically for this pitch. Gareth smiled without warmth. Focus groups you conducted, without external validation, without peer review. This is exactly what concerns me about giving inexperienced creatives control of major accounts. The word inexperienced landed like a slap. Tobias had led successful campaigns for 3 years, but Gareth's implication was clear. Not enough seniority, not enough gravitas, possibly not enough of other things left strategically unspoken. Eva's voice cut through the tension, cold and sharp. Tobias has more successful campaigns in 3 years than most creatives achieve in a decade. His work on Riverside generated $600,000 in savings. Kensington brought in 8 accounts from their corporate chain. If that's inexperience, I'll take it over whatever you're offering, Gareth. The room went absolutely silent. Eva defending Tobias so explicitly, so publicly shifted dynamics. It suggested alliance, favoritism, possibly things beyond professional respect. Gareth's eyes narrowed. I'm simply ensuring we present our strongest work. No need to be defensive. I'm not defensive. I'm correcting inaccuracy. Tobias's presentation is solid. Unless anyone has substantive concerns, not vague criticisms, we're moving forward. She looked around the table. No one spoke. Meeting adjourned. People filed out quickly, avoiding eye contact with both Eva and Tobias. Gareth lingered, approaching Tobias while Eva gathered her materials. Congratulations. You've got her protection for now. But protection doesn't last. It never does. The threat was barely veiled. Tobias maintained neutral expression until Gareth left, then exhaled slowly. Eva closed the conference room door. I'm sorry you had to endure that. You didn't have to defend me so strongly. It puts a target on your back. Gareth already put a target on my back the day my father named me CEO. Fighting him is exhausting, but the alternative is surrendering. I refuse to surrender. She collected her laptop and notes, preparing to leave. At the door, she paused. Dinner Friday. Both of you. My place. I'll cook something kid-friendly, and we can work on that memory project Sage asked about, writing down things her mother said. The invitation felt monumental, moving from public restaurants to private homes, from casual acquaintance to deliberate relationship building. Are you sure that's wise, after what just happened in there? Eva met his eyes directly. Probably not. But I'm tired of letting fear and other people's opinions dictate my choices. Are you coming or not? We'll be there. Friday evening, Tobias stood outside Eva's brownstone in a historic neighborhood he couldn't afford, even if he saved for 20 years. The building was elegant, without being ostentatious, brick and ivy and window boxes with early spring flowers. Sage clutched a drawing she'd made specifically for Eva, unicorns in a meadow, carefully coloured within every line. Eva answered, wearing jeans and an oversized sweater, her feet bare hair loose. The domesticity of the image contrasted sharply with the boardroom executive he knew. She ushered them inside to a space that felt curated but lived in books, overflowing from shelves artwork that looked original rather than decorator-selected, a kitchen that showed signs of actual cooking rather than just expensive appliances. "I made lasagna. Sage, you mentioned at lunch that you liked Italian food." Sage handed over her drawing shyly. Eva accepted it like receiving precious cargo, examining every detail with genuine appreciation. "This is beautiful. I'm going to hang it on my refrigerator. Is that okay?" Sage nodded enthusiastically. Eva made a show of placing the drawing prominently with a magnet, then showed Sage around the apartment while Tobias followed. The place was larger than it appeared from outside, 3 bedrooms, high ceilings, details that spoke of old money and careful restoration. They ate in the dining room, at a table that could seat 10, but held just 3. The lasagna was excellent, clearly homemade, demonstrating skills Eva had downplayed. Conversation flowed easily, the awkwardness that sometimes plagued their interactions dissolving in the warmth of good food and genuine comfort. After dinner, Eva brought out a leather-bound journal and set it on the coffee table in the living room. "For your mama's memories, Sage. We can write down everything you remember. Whenever you think of something new, you add it. Eventually, you'll have a whole book of her stories." Sage's eyes filled with tears, but happy ones. She climbed onto the couch next to Eva and began dictating memories while Eva wrote in careful script. Tobias watched from the armchair, his heart simultaneously breaking and healing as his daughter shared pieces of his late wife with this woman who listened like every word mattered. "Mama used to sing when she cooked. Not real songs, just made-up ones about whatever she was making. Spaghetti songs, pancake songs. Sometimes she'd make up songs about me." Eva wrote it down. "What did the songs about you say?" "That I was brave and smart and her favorite person in the whole world. She said even when she wasn't with me, I should remember I was those things." "Your mama was right. You are all those things." They worked through memories for an hour. Lillian's advice about facing fear, her insistence that mistakes meant you were trying, her tradition of reading bedtime stories with different voices, her habit of leaving notes in Sage's lunchbox. Small moments that built the architecture of a childhood preserved now in ink, where memory couldn't fade them. When Sage's energy finally flagged, Eva suggested she could watch a movie in the guest room while Tobias and Eva cleaned up dinner. Sage agreed, readily comfortable enough in this space to separate from her father for the first time in months when not at school. Standing side by side at Eva's sink, washing dishes in companionable silence, Tobias felt the weight of domesticity settle over them. This could be their life. This ease, this partnership, this sense of building something together beyond professional obligation. "Thank you for tonight. Sage needed this." Eva handed him a dish to dry. "I needed it too. I've spent my entire adult life building a career, proving myself competent and valuable, but this cooking dinner, writing down memories with a child, just being present without agenda, this feels more real than anything I've accomplished professionally." "That's because it is real. Everything else is just scaffolding. The relationships are the actual architecture." She looked at him, water dripping from her hands, something vulnerable and certain in her expression. "I'm falling for you, both of you. I don't know when it happened or how to stop it or if I even want to." Tobias set down the dish he was drying. "Eva, you don't have to say anything. I just needed you to know. I'm tired of pretending I'm only your boss, only Sage's friend. I want more than that." He took her hand, carefully aware of how significant the gesture was. "I want that too, but I come with complications. A daughter who lost one mother already. Financial stress. Grief that still ambushes me at random moments. I'm not an easy choice. Nothing about you is easy. That's part of why I want you." They stood in her kitchen with the movie playing in the next room and dishwater cooling in the sink on the edge of something that felt inevitable and terrifying. Tobias leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull back. She didn't. Their lips met, carefully testing, confirming what they both already knew. The kiss deepened slightly before Sage's voice called from the other room. "Daddy, can we have popcorn?" They broke apart, both smiling at the interruption. Eva called back, "I'll make some. Be right there." The moment passed, but left everything changed. They finished dishes and joined Sage for the movie, sitting close enough that their shoulders touched, letting themselves exist in this space where they could just be people who cared about each other without labels defining what that meant. Driving home later, Sage fell asleep in the back seat immediately. Tobias glanced at her in the rearview mirror and thought about risk, about choosing hope over fear, about how sometimes the scariest thing was allowing happiness when you'd learned loss came for everything you loved. His phone buzzed at a red light. Text from Eva. "Thank you for tonight, for trusting me with something precious. I won't take that trust lightly." He wrote back, "I know you won't. That's why I'm trusting you." The next week blurred past in preparation for the actual Hartman presentation. Final revisions, client prep, contingency planning for every possible objection. Tobias worked late most nights, the pressure enormous but manageable, because Eva worked alongside him, ordering takeout and reviewing slides, and occasionally brushing his hand in passing small gestures of solidarity and affection that kept him anchored. The day before the presentation, Gareth called Tobias into his office. The COO sat behind his desk, like a king, granting audience expression carefully neutral. "Sit down, Brennan. We need to have an honest conversation." Tobias remained standing. "I have work to finish. Can this wait?" "No, it can't." Gareth gestured more insistently to the chair. "Sit, please." Reluctantly, Tobias sat. Gareth folded his hands on the desk, adopting a posture of concerned mentor. "I'm going to be direct, because I think you deserve that. Eva is using you. Not maliciously, I don't think she's aware she's doing it. But you're convenient. The perfect narrative for her leadership story. Talented black creative given opportunities showing her commitment to diversity and progressive values. When the board questions her decisions, she points to you as evidence of her judgment." The words were poison wrapped in care. "That's not what's happening. Isn't it? Think about it objectively. She defends you publicly, gives you accounts beyond your experience level, takes personal interest in your life. It all looks good on her scorecard. But what happens when the narrative needs to change, when defending you becomes politically inconvenient?" Tobias stood. "I think we're done here. The board called a special meeting next Wednesday. They're investigating whether Eva has created inappropriate workplace dynamics that expose the company to liability. Your relationship with her, whatever that relationship is, will be central to their concerns." The information landed like a punch. "What are you talking about?" Gareth's expression shifted to something almost pitying. "Come on. You're seen leaving her office late at night. You've been to her home. You were photographed together at a restaurant and park with your daughter looking very much like a family. People notice these things. People talk." Tobias left Gareth's office with his hands shaking and his vision narrowed to a pinpoint. Photographed. Board investigation scheduled for next Wednesday. Inappropriate workplace dynamics. The words circled his mind like vultures waiting for something to die. He walked straight to Eva's office without stopping at his desk, without formulating a plan, running purely on adrenaline and the urgent need to warn her before everything they'd carefully built collapsed under scrutiny neither of them had anticipated. Eva's assistant wasn't at her desk. He knocked twice and entered without waiting for permission. She sat behind her laptop, reviewing documents, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across her office. Her expression shifted from surprise to concern the moment she saw his face. "What happened?" "Gareth just informed me the board called a special meeting. Next Wednesday. They're investigating our relationship. Someone photographed us at the restaurant and park. They think we're creating liability for the company." Eva closed her laptop slowly, her composure fracturing at the edges. "Who took photos? Does it matter? The damage is done. They have evidence we've been spending time together outside work, with Sage, looking like a family." She stood and moved to the windows, arms wrapped around herself like armor, failing to protect against incoming fire. Several seconds passed before she spoke. "This is Gareth's move. He's been planning this for weeks, maybe months, building a case file while we thought we were being careful." Tobias crossed to where she stood, maintaining the careful distance they'd practiced, even as every instinct screamed to close the gap. "What do? We have 6 days before that meeting. 6 days to build a defense, gather evidence that Gareth manufactured this crisis, prove our relationship hasn't compromised professional judgment." Eva turned to face him, steel returning to her eyes. "Tomorrow is the Hartman presentation. We nail that first. Show the board that everything we've done has been about delivering results, not indulging personal feelings. And after Hartman, we go to war." The evening dragged into night. Tobias picked up Sage from school, endured her questions about why he looked worried, made dinner from whatever remained in the refrigerator. His daughter sat across from him, pushing spaghetti around her plate, her 2 perceptive eyes studying his face. "Is something bad happening at work, Daddy?"
The question deserved honesty without terror. Some people are asking questions about me and Miss Eva.
Grown-up stuff about whether it's okay for us to be friends when I work for her. Sage considered this with her characteristic gravity. That seems like a stupid rule. Despite everything, Tobias almost smiled. Sometimes rules are complicated. We just have to show people we're following the important ones. Like what? Like doing good work. Like being honest. Like not letting feelings about people change how we treat them professionally. You and Miss Eva do all those things. I know, baby, but sometimes people need proof. After Sage fell asleep clutching Lily, Tobias returned to his laptop and the Hartman presentation. He reviewed every slide, every statistic, every creative concept until the words blurred together. This pitch had to be perfect. Not good. Not even excellent. Perfect. Because failure would confirm every suspicion Gareth had planted about favoritism and poor judgment. At midnight, his phone buzzed. Text from Eva. Can't sleep. Keep thinking about Wednesday. He typed back. Me neither, but we get through Hartman first. One crisis at a time. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. I'm sorry I dragged you into this. You could have just accepted that text as a mistake and moved on with your life. I don't want the life where I moved on. I want this one, complicated and terrifying as it is. No response came for several minutes. Then, thank you for choosing this, for choosing us. Morning arrived too quickly. Tobias got Sage ready for school, delivered her to Ms. Valenti with promises to pick her up on time, and drove to Whitmore Publishing with his stomach knotted tight. The Hartman presentation was scheduled for 10 a.m. He arrived by 7 to set up the conference room test, the presentation technology prepare for every possible technical failure that could derail the pitch. Eva appeared at 8:30, wearing a navy suit that projected authority without warmth. She reviewed his setup with critical eyes, asked sharp questions about slide transitions and backup plans, maintained perfect professional distance, even as something vulnerable flickered in her expression whenever their eyes met. You ready for this? Tobias nodded. As ready as I'll ever be. Remember, Patricia Vance values substance over flash. She built Hartman from nothing. She'll respond to strategy that respects her intelligence. I know. Eva hesitated at the door. Whatever happens Wednesday, know that this, you leading Hartman, you earned this. Not because of me. Because you're exceptional at what you do. The words settled into his chest, like ballast, steadying him against the turbulence ahead. At 9:45, the Hartman team arrived. Patricia Vance led 4 executives into the conference room, all of them radiating the particular confidence of people who'd built something significant and knew their worth. The Whitmore executive team assembled as well, department heads, senior leadership, and Gareth Sutherland sitting at the head of the table where Eva normally presided. Tobias launched into the presentation with everything he had. 40 slides detailing market research, creative direction, media strategy, budget allocation, implementation timeline, and projected ROI. He'd rehearsed until every word felt natural, every transition smooth, every data point supporting a larger narrative about Hartman's potential. The room stayed quiet throughout, people taking notes, but not interrupting. Patricia Vance's expression remained neutral, revealing nothing of whether the pitch was landing or falling flat. 20 minutes in, Tobias hit his stride. The presentation stopped being performance and became conversation. He anticipated questions before they were asked, addressed concerns. As they formed, built momentum toward an inevitable conclusion that this campaign was exactly what Hartman needed. He finished at precisely the 60-minute mark and looked directly at Patricia. Questions? She studied him for several seconds before speaking. Mr. Brennan, I've sat through approximately 500 pitch presentations in my career. Most are forgettable. Some are actively bad. A handful are genuinely impressive. She paused. This is the best strategic analysis of Hartman's market position I've ever seen, including presentations from companies charging 3 times what you're asking. Relief flooded through Tobias so powerfully he had to grip the table edge to stay steady. Does that mean we're moving forward? Patricia smiled. It means you've earned the opportunity to prove these projections aren't just theory. We'll need contract details finalized by end of week, but consider this a verbal commitment. 8.5 million. Full campaign as presented. The room erupted in polite applause. Gareth stood and offered his hand to Patricia with politician's smooth congeniality. Excellent news. We're thrilled to partner with Hartman on this initiative. Patricia shook his hand, but her eyes remained on Tobias. I assume Mr. Brennan will be leading implementation continuity as critical for campaign success. Gareth's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. Of course. Tobias is one of our most valuable assets. After the Hartman team departed, the Whitmore executives filed out offering congratulations and relief. Gareth lingered approaching Tobias once they were alone. Impressive work. Truly. The compliment felt like a knife wrapped in silk. Thank you. It's unfortunate timing, though. The board meeting Wednesday will likely overshadow this achievement. Corporate politics often does. Gareth's hand landed on Tobias's shoulder with false warmth. But I want you to know your future here is secure, regardless of what happens with Eva. You've proven your value. I'd hate to lose that because of misplaced loyalty. The offer was transparent manipulation. Abandon Eva, pledge allegiance to the incoming regime, preserve your career while she burns. Tobias shrugged off the touch. My loyalty isn't misplaced, and it's not for sale. Gareth's expression hardened. Everyone's loyalty has a price, Brennan. Usually it's called daughter's medical bills or keeping a roof overhead. Think carefully about which principles you can actually afford. We're done here. Tobias walked out before his temper overrode his judgment. Back at his cubicle, his phone showed 3 missed calls from Eva. He stepped into an empty meeting room and called back. She answered on the first ring. How did it go? They signed. $8.5 million. Patricia called it the best strategic analysis she's ever seen. Eva's exhale carried months of accumulated tension releasing. Thank God. That's ammunition for Wednesday. The board can't credibly claim favoritism when you delivered their biggest contract of the year. Gareth already tried recruiting me. Promised job security if I distance myself from you. Silence stretched between them. When Eva spoke again, her voice carried an edge he'd never heard before. What did you tell him? That my loyalty isn't for sale. Tobias, you could have... No, I couldn't. Because the version of me who abandons you to save my job isn't someone I want my daughter learning from. He paused, letting conviction settle into every word. We don't earn each other, Eva. We choose each other. Every single day. That's what makes this real. Eva's voice went soft. I don't deserve you. Stop saying that. Deserving has nothing to do with it. This is about choosing to be brave when being careful would be easier. They disconnected, and Tobias returned to his desk to find an email from Eva with subject line, confidential, your eyes only. The message contained 2 attachments and minimal text. Started digging into Gareth's expense reports. Found these. Thoughts. The first attachment showed payment records to a company called Sentinel Investigations, LLC. $5,000 2 months ago labeled security consultation. 3 more payments over the following months totaling $13,000 additional dollars. All from Gareth's discretionary budget. The second attachment documented payment to an IT consulting firm for network security analysis 3 weeks ago. $6,000. Tobias's pulse quickened. Corporate surveillance required planning and money. Gareth had been documenting them from the beginning, building a case file that could be weaponized at the strategic moment. He called Eva back. Sentinel Investigations specializes in corporate intelligence and surveillance. I looked them up. This is proof Gareth hired someone to follow us. It's proof he paid them. Not proof of what they did or what he instructed them to do. His lawyers will claim legitimate security consulting. What about the IT payment network security analysis could mean accessing employee accounts, monitoring communications? That's why I'm meeting with our Chief Information Officer tomorrow morning. If someone remotely accessed our email accounts or company servers, there'll be digital footprints, logs showing unauthorized access. How long until you have answers? Couple days. Maybe longer if whoever did it covered their tracks properly. Tobias leaned back in his chair, mind racing through implications. We have until Wednesday. 5 days. Can we build a complete defense in 5 days? We have to, because the alternative is letting Gareth win. That evening, Tobias picked up Sage and took her to the park despite his exhaustion. She needed her father present rather than distracted by corporate warfare. They spent an hour on swings and slides, her laughter temporarily erasing the weight pressing down on his shoulders. Driving home, Sage went uncharacteristically quiet. At a red light, Tobias glanced back to find her staring out the window with Lillian's contemplative expression. What's on your mind, baby? Is Miss Eva in trouble? The question caught him off guard. Why do you think that? Because you look scared the way you looked when Mama was sick, like something bad might happen and you can't stop it. Children's perception was devastating. Some people at work are asking questions about me and Miss Eva spending time together. They think maybe it's not appropriate because I work for her. Sage processed this with her characteristic seriousness. But you like each other, and she's nice to me. How is that inappropriate? Grown-ups have complicated rules about relationships between bosses and employees. We're trying to show people we're following those rules while still being honest about our feelings. What happens if they decide you broke the rules? The question deserved honesty. I might lose my job. Miss Eva might lose hers too. Sage's eyes filled with tears. That's not fair. No, baby, it's not. But sometimes life isn't fair, and we have to deal with it anyway. At home, Sage clung closer than usual. She wanted him to stay in her room after reading bedtime stories, wanted reassurance that he'd be there in the morning, wanted promises he couldn't guarantee about stability and permanence. Tobias held her until she fell asleep, then sat on her bedroom floor in the darkness, thinking about all the ways he'd failed to protect her from the chaos adults created. His phone buzzed. Text from Crew. His best friend. "Bro, you've been dark for days. Everything good?" Tobias typed. "Work stuff. Complicated." "Complicated how?" "The kind where I might lose my job for dating my boss." 3 dots appeared immediately. Then Crew's response. "Oh, damn. You need legal advice. My cousin's an employment lawyer." "Maybe. Got a board meeting Wednesday that'll decide everything." "Want me to watch Sage if you need time to prep?" The offer made Tobias's throat tighten. "Thanks. I'll let you know." Tuesday morning brought the meeting with Eva and the Chief Information Officer. Tobias arrived at 7 a.m. to find both of them already in Eva's office reviewing server logs on dual monitors. The CIO, a meticulous man named David Park, pointed to highlighted entries. "External IP address accessed both your accounts over a 3-week period. Always during business hours. Always when certain other users were logged into the building network." Eva leaned forward. "Can you tell who?" "The access came through VPN that masks origin. But based on timestamp correlation with building access logs, there are only 3 people who were physically present during every intrusion window." David pulled up a spreadsheet showing the overlap. Gareth Sutherland, his executive assistant, and the head of facilities management. "The facilities manager has no reason to access our emails," Eva said. "And Gareth's assistant has been with the company for 20 years with spotless record." David nodded. "Which leaves Gareth. He likely provided login credentials to the IT consulting firm you found in his expense reports. They accessed your accounts remotely while he was in the building to establish plausible deniability." Tobias felt ice settle in his stomach. "That's illegal. Unauthorized access to protected systems." "Absolutely illegal. Federal computer fraud charges if we can prove intent." David pulled up more logs. "I also found evidence that someone installed keylogging software on Eva's office computer 4 weeks ago. Captures every keystroke, every password, every private communication." Eva's face went pale. "How did I not notice that? Sophisticated spyware runs in background without detection unless you're specifically looking for it. I removed it this morning, but whoever installed it has weeks of captured data." The implications were staggering. Every email Eva had written, every private conversation, every strategic planning document, all potentially compromised and available to whoever paid for the surveillance. "Can you trace who installed the keylogger?" Tobias asked. "Physical installation requires building access and computer access. Based on security footage, Gareth entered Eva's office alone on 3 occasions in the past month. Once was late evening when most staff had left." David closed his laptop. "That's all circumstantial. Strong circumstantial, but not definitive proof that would hold up in court without corroborating evidence." Eva stood and paced to her windows, arms crossed tight. "But it's enough to cast serious doubt on his motivations. Enough to show the board that his concerns about my judgment might actually be projection of his own misconduct." "We need a lawyer," Tobias said. "Someone who can present this evidence properly, who understands how to build a case around digital forensics and corporate espionage." Eva turned back to face them. "I have someone. Catherine Rhodes. She specializes in employment law and corporate investigations. I'm meeting with her this afternoon." David gathered his equipment. "I'll prepare a complete technical report documenting everything I found. Timestamps, access logs, forensic analysis. It'll be ready by end of day." After he left, Eva sank into her chair, looking exhausted in a way that transcended physical fatigue. "Gareth's been inside my systems for a month, reading my emails, monitoring my communications. Every strategic plan, every confidential discussion with board members. He's known everything we've been doing. Which means he's also seen evidence that our relationship hasn't affected business decisions, that you've maintained professional boundaries even as personal feelings developed." Eva looked up, something like hope flickering. "You're right. If he has access to our emails, he has proof we've been extraordinarily careful. We've never discussed Hartman in personal contexts. Never let relationship dynamics influence campaign decisions. So his surveillance actually works against him. Maybe, if Catherine can frame it that way. Eva checked her watch. I need to prepare for the lawyer meeting. Can you handle Hartman contract finalization? Patricia's team is sending over draft terms this afternoon. I'm on it. They worked separately through the day, Tobias negotiating contract details with Hartman, while Eva met with her attorney. By evening, exhaustion was settling into Tobias's bones. He picked up Sage from school and took her home, made dinner from frozen chicken nuggets and vegetables she wouldn't eat, helped with homework that seemed impossibly complex for second grade. At 8 p.m., after Sage was in bed, Eva called. Catherine reviewed everything. The surveillance payments, the unauthorized server access, the keylogger evidence. She says it's strong enough to demand board investigate Gareth's conduct before proceeding with their investigation of us. Will they do that? Catherine's filing a formal complaint with the board tomorrow morning, arguing that Gareth's alleged criminal activity creates conflict of interest that invalidates his authority to raise concerns about anyone's judgment. Tobias felt the first real surge of hope since this nightmare began. What happens if they agree to investigate him? Best case, Wednesday's meeting gets postponed while they conduct due diligence on Gareth's activities. Worst case, they proceed with both investigations simultaneously, and we're fighting on two fronts. I'll take best case odds over no odds. Wednesday morning arrived with the weight of execution day. Tobias got Sage ready for school while checking his phone compulsively for updates. At 7:30, Eva texted, Board chair received Catherine's filing. Emergency executive session called for 9 a.m. to discuss. You should be there. Tobias dropped Sage at school with promises to pick her up on time, drove to Whitmore Publishing with his stomach in knots, and took the elevator to the executive floor. Eva waited outside the main conference room, wearing armor in the form of a charcoal suit, her expression revealing nothing but steel. Ready? Tobias nodded. What's the play here? Catherine presents evidence of Gareth's surveillance and hacking. Board decides whether to investigate him before proceeding with investigating us. Then we wait and see if truth actually matters. The conference room held 8 board members, Catherine Rhodes with briefcase full of documentation, and notably absent Gareth Sutherland. The board chair, Margaret Chen, called the session to order with formal gravity. We're here to address allegations that Gareth Sutherland engaged in unauthorized surveillance and potentially criminal hacking of company systems and employee accounts. Ms. Rhodes, you have the floor. Catherine stood and methodically presented evidence. The Sentinel investigation payments with clear documentation of surveillance services. The IT consulting payment traced to a firm specializing in corporate espionage. David Park's technical report showing unauthorized external access to Eva and Tobias's email accounts during Windows when Gareth was physically present in the building. The keylogger installed on Eva's office computer with security footage showing Gareth's late-night access. She laid it out with prosecutorial precision, each piece of evidence building on the previous until the pattern became undeniable. Not assumptions, not theories. Documentation showing systematic surveillance, unauthorized system access, and potential violations of federal computer fraud statutes. When she finished, the room sat in stunned silence. Margaret Chen finally spoke. These are extremely serious allegations. If proven true, they constitute criminal activity that would require immediate termination and potential prosecution. Robert Harris, the skeptical board member, leaned forward. But Ms. Rhodes, this evidence is largely circumstantial. Payments for consulting services aren't inherently suspicious. Gareth having building access to Eva's office isn't unusual given his position. Catherine didn't hesitate. The payments are to firms specializing in surveillance and hacking. The building access was late evening when security cameras show Gareth entering Eva's office alone, and forensic analysis shows spyware installed during that exact time frame. The external server access happened during Windows perfectly aligned with Gareth's presence. Each individual piece might be circumstantial. Together they form a pattern that any reasonable investigation would find compelling. Margaret looked to Eva. Ms. Whitmore, what's your position on proceeding with the original board meeting scheduled for today? Eva stood her voice steady despite the stakes. I believe the board should investigate Mr. Sutherland's conduct before judging mine. If he's been monitoring my communications and activities through illegal means, then his accusations about inappropriate conduct are compromised by his own criminal behavior. Moreover, the very evidence he claims supports concerns about my judgment was potentially obtained through unlawful surveillance. Mr. Brennan. Margaret turned to Tobias. Your perspective. Tobias stood as well, feeling the weight of 8 board members' attention. I made a mistake sending that text message weeks ago, but everything since then has been about delivering exceptional work while maintaining professional boundaries. The Hartman contract proves that personal feelings haven't compromised business judgment. If the board wants to investigate our relationship, that's your right. But you should know the full context of who's making accusations and why. Margaret exchanged glances with other board members. Silent communication happened in looks and subtle gestures that excluded everyone else in the room. Finally, she spoke. "We're postponing today's scheduled meeting. The board will retain outside counsel to investigate both Mr. Sutherland's alleged surveillance activities and the nature of the relationship between Ms. Whitmore and Mr. Brennan. Both investigations will proceed simultaneously. We expect full cooperation from all parties." Catherine stood again. "The board should know that if criminal charges are filed against Mr. Sutherland, that could trigger legal obligations regarding evidence preservation and testimony. Noted. This session is adjourned." Tobias and Eva filed out into the hallway with Catherine. Once the conference room door closed behind them, Eva sagged against the wall. "That went better than expected." Catherine gathered her files. "You bought time. Maybe a week, maybe 2. Use it to document everything about your professional relationship. Every campaign decision, every meeting agenda, every performance review. Build an overwhelming case that feelings never influenced judgment." "How do we prove something didn't happen?" Tobias asked. "You prove something else did happen, that every decision had legitimate business justification, that Tobias earned opportunities through merit, that your relationship developed naturally after professional success, not before." Catherine checked her watch. "I have to get to another meeting. I'll be in touch when the outside investigators contact you." She left them standing in the empty hallway, the weight of uncertainty pressing down like atmospheric pressure before a storm. Eva turned to Tobias. "I need to tell you something. The board didn't just postpone today's meeting. Margaret pulled me aside before we went in. They're placing me on temporary administrative review. Not full leave, but limited authority until investigations conclude." "What does that mean practically?" "It means Gareth becomes acting CEO for operational decisions while I'm sidelined into advisory role. It means he wins partial victory even without the board fully supporting his accusations." Tobias felt rage building in his chest. "That's not fair. You delivered Hartman. You've run this company successfully for 8 months. Fair doesn't matter. Optics matter. And right now the optics of me continuing full authority while being investigated for relationship improprieties and while my COO is being investigated for spying on me, it's messy. They want distance from the mess. So Gareth gets rewarded for being a criminal. Gareth gets temporary power while they determine if he's actually a criminal, which buys him time to consolidate authority and make my eventual return difficult or impossible." Eva straightened, composure reassembling. "But we're not done fighting. We're just fighting differently." Over the next 6 days, Tobias worked with an intensity that bordered on obsession. He documented every Hartman decision, every campaign choice, every strategic discussion with Eva. He compiled performance reviews, client feedback, project outcomes spanning 3 years. He built a presentation that would make undeniably clear that his professional success proceeded and existed independently from his personal relationship with Eva. Meanwhile, outside investigators arrived. They interviewed staff, examined financial records, reviewed email communications. They questioned Tobias for 3 hours about his relationship with Eva, asking variations of the same questions designed to catch inconsistencies or admissions of favoritism. He told the truth. That attraction developed naturally, that they'd been careful to maintain boundaries, that campaign decisions were always justified by business needs rather than personal feelings, that Eva had transferred his reporting relationship to eliminate direct supervisor dynamics, that they'd disclosed the relationship to HR once it became serious. The following Tuesday afternoon, 6 days after the postponed board meeting, Tobias received a call from the lead investigator, a former federal prosecutor named James Mitchell. "Mr. Brennan, I need to ask about photographs showing you Ms. Whitmore and your daughter at a restaurant and public park. Can you explain the context? Eva invited us to lunch as a thank you for the Hartman campaign success. My daughter joined because Eva had expressed interest in meeting her. We went to a park afterward because Sage wanted to play. This was before the relationship became romantic. The relationship was developing at that point, but we hadn't formalized anything. We were spending time together to see if our feelings were mutual and sustainable." "And you saw nothing inappropriate about your boss taking you and your daughter to lunch?" Tobias kept his voice level. "I saw someone being kind to a single father and a child who'd lost her mother. If that's inappropriate, then I don't understand what appropriate means anymore." Mitchell paused. "One more question. In your professional opinion, has Ms. Whitmore ever shown favoritism toward you, made decisions that benefited you at the expense of what was best for the company?" "No, never. Every opportunity I've received, I've earned through work quality. Eva has held me to the same standards as everyone else, maybe higher, because she knew people would scrutinize her decisions about me." "Thank you for your time, Mr. Brennan." The call ended. Tobias had no idea whether he'd helped or hurt their case. That evening, he picked up Sage and took her to Eva's apartment, something that had become routine over the past weeks. Eva cooked dinner while Sage did homework at the kitchen table, the domestic scene feeling simultaneously natural and fragile. After Sage went to watch a movie in the guest room, Eva and Tobias sat on the couch with wine neither of them really wanted. "Mitchell called me too," Eva said. "Asked similar questions. Wanted to know if I'd given you preferential treatment." "What did you say?" "That I held you to higher standards than anyone else specifically because I knew people would look for favoritism. That every decision about your career was documented and justified. That our relationship exists despite workplace complications, not because of them." Tobias set down his wine glass. "Do you think we'll survive this?" "Honestly, I don't know. We have strong evidence that Gareth's accusations were motivated by malice and criminal conduct, but that doesn't automatically prove our relationship has been completely above board."
The board might decide we both exercised poor judgment, just not criminal judgment.
What happens if they decide that best case, formal reprimand, mandatory training, continued employment with monitoring? Worst case, I'm asked to resign to avoid termination. You're fired or pressured to leave. The scenarios hung between them like possible futures branching in a dozen different directions. Tobias reached for Eva's hand, the simple touch grounding them both. "Whatever happens, I want you to know something. Choosing you, choosing us, that's not something I'll ever regret, even if it costs me everything." Eva looked at him with eyes that had seen too much disappointment to trust hope easily. "You keep saying that, but if this costs you your job, costs Sage's security, you'll resent me eventually. I'll resent a system that punishes honesty while rewarding manipulation. I'll resent Gareth for being a vindictive criminal, but I won't resent you for being someone I chose to care about." She leaned against him, exhaustion finally overwhelming the armor she wore for everyone else. "I'm so tired, Tobias. Tired of fighting, tired of justifying my existence, tired of feeling like one mistake will erase every achievement." "Then rest. Right now, in this moment, rest." They sat together while Sage's movie played in the other room and the city lights flickered beyond the windows. Stolen peace in the midst of war. Temporary sanctuary before the next battle. Monday morning brought the call both of them had been dreading. The board wanted a final meeting Wednesday at 10 a.m. Decisions would be rendered on both investigations. Catherine warned them to prepare for any outcome. Tobias spent Monday and Tuesday working with Catherine to finalize their defense presentation. Documentation of every professional decision timeline of relationship development, evidence of proper disclosure and protocol compliance. They built their case like lawyers preparing for trial, anticipating every counter-argument. Tuesday evening, Tobias sat with Sage after dinner and made a decision he'd been avoiding. "Baby, I need to talk to you about something important. You know how I've been stressed about work stuff?" Sage nodded, setting down Lily to give him full attention. "Tomorrow I have a meeting where people will ask questions about me and Miss Eva. Questions about whether we should be allowed to work together while also being in a relationship." Sage's face grew serious. "Are you going to lose your job?" The direct question deserved a direct answer. "I don't know. Maybe. The people making the decision think maybe it's wrong for a boss and an employee to care about each other the way Miss Eva and I do. But that's stupid. You're both good at your jobs, and Miss Eva is nice to me. Why does it matter if you like each other? Because sometimes when people have power over other people, like a boss over an employee, there's worry that the powerful person might treat the other person better than everyone else. Not because they deserve it, but just because of feelings." Sage processed this with her characteristic gravity. "Do you think Miss Eva treats you special because she likes you?" "No. I think she treats me the same as everyone else. Maybe even stricter because she knows people are watching." "Then those people tomorrow are wrong." Tobias smiled despite his anxiety. "Maybe. But they still get to decide." "Can I come with you?" The question surprised him. "Why would you want to do that?" "Because if they're making decisions about our family, I should be there. Mama always said families stick together when things are hard." The simple wisdom from his 8-year-old daughter broke something open in Tobias's chest. "It might be boring. Lots of grown-ups talking about complicated things. I'm good at boring, and I can draw if it gets too long. Please, Daddy." Looking at Sage's determined expression, Tobias saw Lillian's strength and stubbornness reflected back. His daughter, still processing her mother's death, still dealing with anxiety and grief, was volunteering to support him in the way she understood how. "Okay, you can come. But if it gets too scary or uncomfortable, you tell me immediately." "I promise." Wednesday morning arrived with crystalline clarity, the kind of bright, cold day that made everything sharp-edged and unforgiving. Tobias dressed carefully, got Sage ready in her favorite purple dress, and drove to Whitmore Publishing, with his heart hammering against his ribs. Eva met them in the lobby, surprise flickering across her face when she saw Sage. "I didn't expect you to bring her." She asked to come, said family sticks together when things are hard. Eva knelt down to Sage's level. "That's very brave. Your mama was right about families." They rode the elevator together, unlikely trio preparing for corporate judgment. The conference room held the same 8 board members, plus Catherine Rhodes and James Mitchell, the outside investigator. Gareth's presence was notably absent, his fate apparently already decided, or at least separated from theirs. Margaret Chen gestured to seats. "Please sit. We have conclusions to share regarding both investigations." Tobias helped Sage into a chair and handed her the bag with drawing supplies and Lily. She settled quietly, seeming to understand this was important, even if she didn't grasp the specifics. James Mitchell stood and opened a folder. "After extensive investigation into Gareth Sutherland's conduct, we've determined he violated federal computer fraud statutes through unauthorized access to company systems and employee accounts. He hired private investigators to conduct surveillance without proper authorization. He installed spyware on executive equipment. The evidence supports criminal prosecution, which the board is pursuing. Mr. Sutherland's employment has been terminated effective immediately." Relief crashed through Tobias, but he forced himself to remain composed. One threat eliminated, but their judgment remained pending. Mitchell continued. "Regarding the relationship between Ms. Whitmore and Mr. Brennan, we've found the following. Their professional interactions have consistently maintained appropriate boundaries. Campaign decisions were justified by business needs and documented accordingly. Mr. Brennan's advancement was merited by work quality that exceeds company standards. The relationship developed after professional success was established, not before. Proper disclosure protocols were followed once the relationship became serious." Margaret took over. "However, we've also found that the initial text message constituted workplace conduct requiring formal documentation. Ms. Whitmore's decision not to report it created appearance of favoritism, even if actual favoritism didn't occur. Both parties exercised poor judgment in allowing personal feelings to develop without immediately establishing protective protocols." The room went silent. Tobias could hear his own heartbeat, could feel Sage's small hand reaching for his under the table. Robert Harris leaned forward. "The question before this board is whether poor judgment rises to the level requiring termination or lesser disciplinary action." Sage spoke suddenly, her voice clear in the quiet room. "Excuse me, can I say something?" Every head turned toward the 8-year-old holding a stuffed rabbit. Margaret's expression softened slightly. "Of course, dear. What would you like to say?" "My daddy made a mistake with that text message, but he's a really good daddy and really good at his job. Miss Eva is nice to me and helps me remember my mama. They didn't do anything wrong by being friends. And if you punish them for caring about each other, that's a mean rule." The simple statement from a child cut through legal complexities and corporate policy to something fundamental. Several board members shifted uncomfortably. Margaret looked at Sage with something like respect. "You're right that caring about people isn't wrong, but grown-ups have rules about relationships at work to make sure everyone is treated fairly. Are you treating them fairly right now?" The question hung in the air, challenging and innocent simultaneously. Margaret glanced at other board members, then back to Eva and Tobias. "We've deliberated extensively. Our decision is as follows. Ms. Whitmore, you are reinstated to full CEO authority effective immediately. Mr. Brennan, you will remain in your current role reporting to the CFO rather than directly to Ms. Whitmore. Both of you will complete mandatory training on workplace relationships and ethics within 30 days. You will submit to quarterly reviews for the next year to ensure professional boundaries remain intact. Any future policy violations will result in immediate termination without severance. This concludes the investigation." Tobias felt the room tilt slightly. They'd survived. Battered and scrutinized and placed on probationary monitoring, but they'd survived. Eva stood slowly. "Thank you. We won't disappoint the board's trust." Margaret's expression remained serious. "See that you don't. You're both on notice any hint of impropriety, any suggestion that personal feelings compromise professional judgment, and this conversation happens again with far less favorable outcome. We'll be watching closely." They left the conference room as a unit, Tobias, Eva, and Sage. In the elevator, none of them spoke until the doors closed and they were alone. Then Eva sagged against the wall. "We did it. We actually survived." Sage looked up at both of them. "Does this mean Daddy keeps his job?" "Yes, baby. Daddy keeps his job. And you can still be friends with Miss Eva."
"Yes, we can still be friends." Sage smiled, satisfied with this resolution. "Good.
because I like when we're all together. Outside in the parking lot, Eva stopped at her car. Late morning sun caught her hair, turning it almost white in the brightness, and for a moment she looked younger than 32. Looked like someone who'd carried too much weight for too long and was finally allowed to set it down. "What happens now?" Tobias asked. "Now we do the work. Deliver Hartman brilliantly. Prove the board made the right decision. Build something that lasts, instead of just surviving crisis to crisis." That sounds exhausting. Probably, but also worthwhile. She looked at Sage. "What do you think? Should your daddy and I keep building our friendship into something more?" Sage considered this with her characteristic seriousness. "I think Mama would want Daddy to be happy, and you make him smile, so yes." Eva knelt down and hugged Sage gently. "Thank you for being brave today, for speaking up when it mattered." That's what family does. The simple statement carried weight beyond its words. Family. Not boss and employee, not CEO and staff. Family. Built through choice and care and showing up when things got hard. Tobias drove home with Sage already asleep in the back seat, exhaustion finally claiming her after the adrenaline of the morning. He carried her inside, tucked her into bed still in her purple dress, and stood in the doorway watching her sleep peacefully for the first time in weeks. His phone buzzed. Text from Eva. "Thank you for fighting for us, for not giving up when it would have been easier, for choosing this complicated, beautiful mess we're building." He typed back, "Thank you for giving me a second chance when you had every reason not to, for seeing past the mistake to the person underneath, for being brave enough to care despite everything that tried to stop us." 3 dots appeared. Then, dinner Friday. My place. Just the 3 of us. No work talk, no crisis management, just being together. "We'll be there." Tobias set down his phone and returned to Sage's room. He sat on the edge of her bed and touched her hair gently, careful not to wake her. "Lillian," he whispered to the space where his late wife existed now only in memory and impact. "I know this isn't what we planned. I know you wanted to be here for all of this. But I'm trying. Trying to give Sage a good life, trying to be open to happiness again, trying to honor what you taught me about love being abundant rather than finite. I hope you'd approve of Eva. I hope you'd see that choosing her doesn't mean forgetting you." No answer came because answers never came. Just the soft sound of Sage breathing and the late afternoon light streaming through windows and the ordinary miracle of life continuing despite everything that tried to stop it. Friday arrived with the promise of weekend peace. Tobias picked up Sage from school and drove to Eva's apartment, the route already familiar. The destination already feeling like home in a way that had nothing to do with ownership and everything to do with welcome. Eva had cooked real cooking, not takeout or frozen meals. The apartment smelled like roasted chicken and fresh bread. Sage ran to help with setting the table, chattering about her day, while Eva listened with genuine interest. They ate together at Eva's dining table, designed for 10, but holding just 3. Conversation flowed naturally. Sage's school projects, Tobias's Hartman campaign updates, Eva's plans for company restructuring now that Gareth was gone. Normal talk from normal people building normal life. After dinner, Eva brought out the leather journal they'd started weeks ago, Sage's Memories of Lillian. They added new entries while Sage dictated stories about her mother's pancake songs and thunderstorm courage and insistence that every problem had a solution if you were patient and creative enough. Mama used to say that being scared is okay, but staying scared forever means you miss all the good things, Sage said, her voice thoughtful. I think she'd be happy we're not staying scared anymore. Eva wrote it down carefully. Your Mama sounds like she was very wise. She was. And she always said that love doesn't run out, that you can love people who are gone and people who are here at the same time. It's not like cookies where if you give some away, you have less. Love gets bigger when you share it. Tobias felt his throat tighten. 8 years old, and his daughter understood something it had taken him 2 years to learn. Later, after Sage fell asleep on Eva's couch mid-movie, Tobias carried his daughter to the car while Eva walked beside them. Thank you for tonight, he said quietly, careful not to wake Sage, for making this feel possible, for making us feel like a family. Eva touched his arm gently. We are a family. Maybe not in the traditional way, maybe not in the way anyone planned, but that doesn't make it less real. The wrong text to the right person. Something like that. She smiled. Drive safe. Text when you're home. Always. Tobias drove through the city with his sleeping daughter in the back seat, and hope unfurling in his chest like something that had been compressed too long and was finally allowed to expand. They'd survived the worst. The board meeting was over. The investigations concluded. The threats neutralized. But as he carried Sage into their apartment and tucked her into bed as he checked his phone to see Eva's goodnight text already waiting as he lay in his own bed thinking about futures that felt possible for the first time since Lillian died, Tobias understood something fundamental had shifted. This wasn't the end of their story. It was barely the beginning. There would be more challenges ahead. Quarterly reviews scrutinizing every interaction. Colleagues watching for signs of favoritism. The constant pressure of proving their relationship didn't compromise their professionalism. The delicate work of integrating Eva into Sage's life without rushing or forcing. The gradual process of building trust that had been damaged by grief and fear and the ordinary wounds of living. But they would face it together, not because it was easy, not because the path was clear, but because they'd chosen each other despite every reason not to.
Because sometimes the biggest mistakes led to the greatest opportunities. Because love, as Lillian had taught their daughter, didn't run out. It grew bigger when you shared it. Tobias closed his eyes and let exhaustion finally claim him. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Next week would test them in ways they couldn't predict. The coming months would require patience and courage and the kind of stubborn hope that refused to surrender even when surrender seemed sensible. But tonight he could rest. Tonight they were safe. Tonight the wrong text to the right person had led them exactly where they needed to be. And that Tobias thought as sleep finally pulled him under was enough. For now it was more than enough.